Hey everybody, it's Adam D'Angeli from the Rescue Michigan Coalition with another one of these unannounced live streams. Well, I did announce it an hour ago when I decided I was going to do it, but this is an important topic. We may cover it in more depth on our regular Sunday show, but I really wanted to get into it tonight. I've been receiving lots of emails, texts, a lot of people talking about the campaigns, the elections, and so forth. And the abortion issue obviously has come to the forefront, and people are asking a lot of questions about Tudor Dixon's message, how we respond to that. And a lot of people, frankly, really being very concerned and afraid of what Tudor Dixon's campaign message is on this. And so there's a lot of things I want to go over here. First, of course, being what the actual truth of the matter is, but then also talking about the political implications of it and how we need to react to it. So this is going to be a stream all about abortion, which, as you may know, is really not one of the core issues of the Rescue Michigan Coalition. I would say our core essence has always really been about grassroots leadership and in general just empowering conservatives to be effective, and not necessarily on any particular issue, but over the last couple of years, a lot of issues we've really gotten involved in a big way. Election integrity, of course, being one of them. Lockdowns, mandates, medical tyranny, these things, these fundamental liberty issues, these have been things we have not been able to shy away from. But we try not to be a advocacy organization on every issue, because no two people agree on everything. And the reality is, anyone talking to any other person is going to have a policy disagreement on one thing or another, no matter if you're both Democrats or both Republicans or both libertarians or whatever. There is just no way for everybody to agree on everything. And in general, the more issues a political organization like ours or anyone else's takes on, the more divisive it is. And if people hear one thing they disagree with, they go away. So we've always tried to keep the focus on those things. As I say, again, in general, grassroots leadership and empowering people who are new to politics to do what's effective in on any issue that's their calling. But then again, as I say, also on a lot of legislative issues, we have gotten involved, and election integrity being a big one, certainly for me as a whistleblower for the 2020 election, and lockdowns and all of the just gross abuses of civil liberties and everything else. But here we are, folks. It is now less than 2 months away from the November election. And I'll just be honest with you, things are not looking good in Michigan. They're not. And that is terrifying, frankly. I mean, this is the scenario we've been trying to help people avoid for the last couple of years, where the Republican Party in general is this toxic stew of infighting. And look, I've been involved in politics for 15 years. My experience with the infighting and the personal drama and everything else is just go about your work. Just when you hear stuff going on, just try to avoid it, stay away from it. You have to focus on the goal. And the goal is beating the tyrants. And in this election, that means beating Whitmer, Benson, and Nessel, even if you are not a Republican. And personally, I think nobody needs to identify with the political party as a part of their personal identity. I got into Republican politics as a Ron Paul supporter, who, of course, was known previously as a quintessential libertarian. And even just having said that, that's controversial, because what does a libertarian mean? It depends on who you talk to. There's an Ayn Rand libertarian type that's very different from a Ron Paul libertarian type, that's for sure. And in fact, the abortion issue is one of those core issues on which elements of the Libertarian Party do not agree. There is no one label that works for everybody. So saying I'm a Republican, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean you're pro or against illegal immigration? Depends. What does it mean about your foreign policy? It depends. And that's the problem with labels. That's just the way it goes. But what's happened in the last few weeks is that the media and the Democrats have been able to make abortion the key issue in this election. And there's a lot of elements to that as to why that happened. And we can go back through it. It's not really all that important. Tudor Dixon is the nominee. But the reality is Gretchen Whitmer has been able to campaign for re-election for the past 4 years. She's been able to mop up money from tons and tons and tons of out-of-state billionaires for the last 4 years. Apparently, just today, a court of appeals ruled that it was totally okay for her to take in millions of dollars in illegal contributions from people because of her quote-unquote recall campaign, and then just donate that to the party. So I guess every Republican can do that too in the future, apparently. They just have to have a recall campaign filed against them, and then they can take in unlimited amounts of money and give that away to whoever they want. But anyway, we are going, by the way, hey, everybody in chat, Patty P and Dwayne and Sandra, and I am also streaming live on YouTube, and I need to refresh my Rumble window to make sure I'm not missing things from the people on Rumble. So if you're in the chat on YouTube and Rumble, feel free to participate as well. But anyway, I want to just talk about this main thing, the issue of abortion and how our side needs to address this in the next 2 months. The first point I want to make is you should never let the enemy dictate the battle lines. And the Democrats were desperate to make abortion the issue of the year, because on every other issue under the sun, they're disgusting. On lockdowns, on vaccine mandates, on school closures, on taxes, on spending, on radical ideology, the Democrats are atrocious. So they are looking to make this election all about abortion. And it really is important to spell out to people that they need to be thinking rationally about this. And there's two ways to go about doing that. And this is where I want to get into some fundamental principles of communication here on this. Let's say you get an email. Here's an email I got today. Why doesn't Tudor Dixon make a statement that as a governor, she will allow the people's representatives to decide Michigan's abortion law? Her personal feelings should not be an election issue, and Whitmer is going crazy with campaign ads highlighting this issue. Governors don't make laws. Republican governors don't even, though Whitmer, Nessel, and Benson seem to think it's legal to do so. That's an email I got from a supporter today. Now, looking at that, you can see how a person is manipulated by the propaganda of the enemy. Because what should Tudor Dixon be doing? Should she be allowing the radical left to dictate the terms of the discussion? Oh, you want to talk about abortion, so I'll talk about abortion even more. I mean, there's different ways to handle this, but head on is the worst. Because what you are doing, and what Tudor should not be faulted for not doing, is not engaging on the abortion issue. Because what they're trying to do is change the subject. Now, there are certainly going to be times when the issue has to be addressed. And there's ways to do that. The number one way, and this is the way that you all need to understand. If you're talking to a voter about abortion, if they're 100% pro-abort, you can't convince them. If they're 100% pro-life, it won't matter. But most voters are somewhere in between. That's what the Democrats are leveraging is, oh, she doesn't allow abortions in cases of rape and incest. You have to use the tactics the left uses. And again, not accept the terms of the opposition. Don't defend Tudor. Attack Whitmer. Whitmer's position is all abortion in the most extreme ways is okay. Gretchen Whitmer openly condones late-term abortions, abortions at 9 months, dismemberment abortions, abortions where they literally rip the limbs off of the babies as they kill them. She supports abortions where they stab the baby in the brain as they rip it out of the womb. at 9 months. That's her position. She endorses the abortion proposal, which includes not only every single kind of abortion being enshrined in the state constitution, but also the sexual mutilation of children without their parents' knowledge or consent, which is a real problem across the entire country right now. Because the radical transgender lobby has made this into a thing for kids. And by the way, folks, and I've said this before, I will say it again. Pro-life people are not going to vote for that proposal. The people who are in play, the people whose votes are on the line, who are going to win or lose that proposal, and probably the election with it, are the people in the middle. Whose position is, well, abortion is bad. It's probably okay if it's very early, et cetera, et cetera. You have to, so by the way, someone on YouTube says, what's the name of this proposal? I believe it's now officially Proposal 3. I'll have to look into that. It was just approved yesterday by the state Supreme Court. I think it's Prop 3. But they call it the Reproductive Freedom for All Amendment, which is, again, a term you never want to use. That's another important rule in politics. Never let the opposition name the controversy. They want to call it the Reproductive Freedom for All Amendment proposal. You call it the Sexual Mutilation of Children proposal. Late-term abortion, dismemberment abortion, and sexual mutilation of minors proposal. Now, in politics, there's also another rule. Short names beat long names. So if you call it the late-term abortion, dismemberment abortion, and sexual mutilation of minors proposal, it's going to lose to the Reproductive Freedom for All proposal. That's why at Rescue Michigan, we call it the SCAM proposal, where SCAM is an acronym for sterilization, castration, abortion, and murder. That is the technique there. In fact, let me pull this up on the screen. Hold on. What's going on with my screen here? I've got the actual, here we go. This is the flyer that we're mailing out in batches of 1,000 across the state. And we make this clear to people. If approved by voters, all forms of abortion, including late-term abortion up to the moment of birth, dismemberment abortion in which a baby is simply ripped out of his or her mother's womb limb from limb, would be legal up to the moment of birth. And we address all of the left-wing lies about that on the link at the QR code. And it says it also here, too, to fool voters. The SCAM proposal says the state may regulate abortion after fetal viability, but under the proposal, they can't if, in the sole opinion of the abortionist, killing a baby is necessary for the mother's mental health, i.e. if she asked for it. And there is, of course, a graphic photo of a late-term abortion, which people, frankly, need to see to understand what is actually at stake here. And again, I would suggest that, especially because the pro-life groups will be talking about the abortion stuff anyway, the business about minors being allowed to sexually mutilate themselves at the hands of a radical doctor and social worker and school official need to be highlighted and focused on. But getting back to this stuff about abortion. Let me, hold on, I'm going to pull up I got some other emails too. But the general sense of it was, look, I'm a Republican, but I can't support Tudor Dixon because she's so radical on abortion. And you have to push back against this, people. You have to say, she's not radical on abortion. Whitmer's radical on abortion. She's endorsing killing 9-month-old babies. That's what's in there. And the media is lying about it. Don't ever let the media escape without having been called out for lying about this, because they've been lying about this from day one. You won't find one mainstream media story talking about the fact that in this proposal is legalizing the sterilization of children without their parents' consent. You won't find one. And the media has to be called out on this. But what's scary is how easily propaganda can be imprinted on the voters. And look, folks, I don't know what is in the cards in the future for the Dixon campaign or the DePerno campaign or the Caramo campaign or the HRCC or the SRCC or any Republican candidate. But I can tell you this. Ballots are going to be out in less than 2 weeks. And having seen very little from the establishment or conservative Inc. or whatever you might call the well-moneyed cavalry, it's not coming. That doesn't mean that Tudor Dixon can't win. This is going to be an election that will be determined by the grassroots or their failure to organize our precincts, to knock on doors, to talk to people, to bring them the truth that others will not. And every single precinct canvasser can impact 50 votes between now and election day. If we had Republican precinct delegates in every precinct in Michigan doing the work they said they wanted to do and being as effective as they could in the next 2 months, we still can win this election yet. But don't expect anything else to do so. Emma Birch asks, can you read the part about sexual mutilation, the language in the bill? Let me pull it up, Emma. But it's clever. And it's what it says is there is an individual right to total reproductive freedom. And by individual right, that means including children. And they say reproductive freedom includes all decisions relating to abortion, and then it also lists off sterilization. Let me see if I can find it here. Hold on one sec. I'm trying to find it. I know I've seen it before. Emma, I might have to put the link in the description to this because it's not coming up off the top of my head. But that's what it is, and that's how they conceal it. Is it says there is an individual right to all matters relating to reproduction, which obviously includes sex. And they actually expressly say in the proposal, including sterilization. Dwayne Gritter says these proposals are more important than the gubernatorial race. Well, they're all interconnected anyway, Dwayne. The reality is, if the lies about these proposals stand, we will definitely lose the governor race, and vice versa. If we expose the fact that that's what the Democrats are actually pushing for, then we will win. Bill Hamilton says, do you have the full text of these proposals as presented on the petition sheets that they circulated? So I assume, Bill, you're talking about two of them, the abortion one and also the elections one. I actually just emailed somebody the link to the elections one. I'm sure I can copy and paste that and post it into the chat. However, I caution you, you will need some tools to be able to read and print them because it comes across sideways in tiny, tiny little printing. So they're not easy to read. But let me find it. Hold on, I'm just going through. Here we go. There it is. I will post this. Let me see what happens if I post it in the chat. I put all. If you're watching on Rumble, I guess this probably won't show up. But if you are watching in Facebook or YouTube, hopefully it will. And you can see it there. It's at the michigan.gov website. So yeah, okay. So it posted to Facebook and YouTube. If you're on Rumble, you'll have to watch this on the other videos to see that link. Rachel Clore says, so you're saying the DeVos family is the establishment that is refusing to fund Tudor Dixon's campaign? I did not say that, Rachel. No, I did not say that. So there you go. I'm not sure what else to say to respond to that. Anyway, I want to get back to the essence of this. The issue here is winning on this issue and how you calibrate your arguments to different people. Those who are pro-life don't need convincing. So if you're talking to someone who's pro-life, the only question ultimately is that the right tactic? And all you got to do is point out, that's not what her campaign chose to emphasize. It's what the Democrats have chosen to emphasize because they have nothing else to talk about. Rachel Clore says, so define establishment that refuses to fund Tudor Dixon. I haven't defined the word establishment. I mean, it could be anybody. It could be the National Republican Governors Association. Could be the DeVos family. Could be anybody who wants to support Republican causes. But we have never seen, with this short a time span before the election, this little amount of PAC support for the Republican nominee for governor. It's unheard of. Bill Hamilton says, I printed some of your flyers and passed them out tonight. It'll appear GOP booth at a local event. Thank you, Bill. Outstanding. Well, I hope if you haven't already gotten the real flyers, the ones that we print, I hope you get them soon. They look really nice. They're glossy and the black background, they look very different. And yeah, I think they are eye-catching and hard-hitting, and that's what a flyer needs to be. That's what any political advertisement needs to be, is hard-hitting. Rachel on Facebook says, could it be the same family that was putting out smear campaigns against all Trump-endorsed candidates, that being the DeVos family? No, Rachel, she says it makes sense when you connect the dots, right? No, it actually doesn't, for a couple of reasons. One being the DeVosses did support Tudor Dixon through the primary, and secondly, Rachel, because the second place candidate for governor was Kevin Rinke, who was clearly less conservative than Tudor Dixon. He was less pro-life, and he was also less pro-Second Amendment. So had the DeVosses not supported Tudor Dixon, we would have had a less conservative nominee in all likelihood. Of course, the other aspect of that was Trump's endorsement. And again, Trump endorsed Tudor Dixon. He did not endorse Kevin Rinke. Rachel continues to say, and they also announced that they finished with funding her in the generals. Well, I have not seen that. Let's assume it is true. Then what was going to be the alternative, Rachel? Here's the question, Rachel. Do you want another 4 years of Gretchen Whitmer? Because here we are. Are you going to gab about the DeVosses, or are you going to try to inform voters about the choice we face between, on one hand, an incompetent, tyrannical lunatic, Gretchen Whitmer, or a sane, reasonable person, Tudor Dixon, whose position on abortion is actually highly principled? Because here's the thing, folks. If you're pro-life, the core assumption on life is that that baby developing in the womb has rights and therefore can't be killed. Is it not? Isn't that what being pro-life means? It's a baby with a soul. Yeah? Okay, so if that developing baby has a soul and has rights, then do those rights get waived because of the father's crimes? If the father raped the mother? Is the developing baby no longer entitled to protections of the law because the mother is young? If you're pro-life, the whole point of it is that the baby has rights. And if you have exceptions for rape and incest, you're not really upholding those principles at all, are you? Now, you can't change the average voter's mind on this. They've done the polls. Yeah, voters are mostly somewhere in the middle on abortion, but not for rape and incest. Whose job is it to change their minds on that? Is it the DeVos's job? Is it someone else's job? Why is it not your job? You're seeing the Republican nominee for governor who would save our state from an insane, tyrannical lunatic having a second term. At what point, with 2 months left to go till election day and less than that for absentee ballots and so forth, at what point do you say, it's my duty as an American, as a Michigander, to stop Gretchen Whitmer from getting a second term? The time is now. And the challenge that we have is to combat the left's lies, which they have the ability to spread through a vast financial advantage and a vast advantage in the media And Rachel, if you're mad about the DeVosses, guess what? Without the DeVos money, it's even harder. It's even harder. You know what the Democrats' money source is? Everything. The globalists, the Fed, the statists, big government, big industry. They have all the money in the world. Oh, let's spit at the DeVosses. And by the way, folks, if you've been watching our show, you know we have gotten into it with the DeVosses this year in a personal way over the way they slandered a certain candidate for state rep. And we will probably get into it with them again. Right now, the challenge is this. Are we going to let people who conspired to commit the most radical deprivation of civil liberties in Michigan history get a second term? Because they're able to bamboozle the voters into thinking that abortion is a more important issue than the complete destruction of civil society in Michigan. And even on the abortion issue being totally wrong. Rachel says, this is all a setup and it's obvious now. There are no other explanations. You're not very imaginative, Rachel. No other explanations. This is all a setup. It's all a conspiracy. You know what it really is? It's you looking for an excuse to do nothing. Oh, well, the elections count for nothing. Your vote's a total fraud. It's all a big conspiracy. There's nothing we can do. So why should I ever bother trying to talk to my neighbors or persuade people to turn out the vote? It plays to your sense of laziness to think there's nothing that can possibly be done. Nothing can be possibly done. I don't buy that, Rachel. In fact, I would say that no matter how bad things are, we have a duty to do everything that we can to save our state. And that means informing the voters as much as we possibly can about the truth of the situation. We have to do everything we possibly can to overcome the power structure that is the mass media, the Democrat machine, and everything else. Because there's no other option. If we lose, it only gets harder and more difficult next time. And we are losing. So I am fed up, frankly, with people making excuses. Oh, and the GOP establishment, blah, blah, blah. We had a primary. We ended up nominating the most conservative candidates we have ever nominated for Attorney General, Secretary of State, and Governor, and Lieutenant Governor. By far. If that's not enough for the grassroots, then I'm here to tell you, folks, if this ticket loses, the establishment will be in stronger positions next time. And that, by the way, might be what the establishment actually wants. Maybe that's why the DeVosses aren't funding the campaigns, Rachel. Maybe that's why Christina Caramo and Matt DePerno have been frozen out of establishment money. Because they want to see Trumpsters lose. Are you going to let them? Are you going to let them have that victory? Or are you going to fight? Or are you going to get out and knock on doors and show people what insane tyrants these Democrats are? That is what we have now 2 months left to do. So here is my advice to all of you folks when this abortion issue comes up. Don't engage the other side on their terms, ever. Gretchen Whitmer is the radical on abortion. Most normal people don't think it's okay to murder a 9-month-old baby. That's what the proposal says they can do. Also makes it impossible to even discover the facts about a baby that died after having survived an abortion. And even those who don't support abortion, even those who do support abortion, don't support children being allowed to mutilate their genital organs because some teacher told them it was an okay thing to do. We have to get out the truth about these proposals. So, Rescue Michigan, we have these flyers available. Go to rescuemichigan.com. And of course, anything that anybody else is doing, fine by us. I think personally, these are the most hard-hitting flyers anybody's ever made. And ditto with our Gretchen Whitmer flyer as well. I can probably pull that up too, which is printing right now. We may also have one on Dana Nessel and Jocelyn Benson coming soon. Let me pull up the Gretchen Whitmer flyer. Oh, hold on, it's a thumbnail. You know what? You guys can see it. It's at rescuemichigan.com. And any other group doing the same kind of thing that we're doing, more power to them. If you don't like our flyers, I hope someone else makes a better one. I hope every voter hears from 100 people what the reality is about these proposals, about what Gretchen Whitmer has done to our state in the past few years, and have to actually be forced to consider the wisdom of making a governor's election about abortion. Like, people's desire to kill babies is so great that they don't care that they're also suffocating children, as Gretchen Whitmer did. That's what the election has to be about. And we have to stop letting the opposition determine the terms of debate. If you must talk about abortion, tackle it head on. And not by being defensive, but by counterattacking. By pointing out that Whitmer's stance on abortion is radically outside the mainstream, that most people don't think a living baby that survives an abortion can be killed. But that's what that proposal does. And that's what Whitmer supports. And also, oh, by the way, she destroyed our state. So those are the places to go. Anyway, folks, I did not even plan on doing a stream tonight, but I wanted to really talk about the abortion stuff tonight because I'll tell you, from the emails I've seen and from the discussions I've had, we're not winning this issue right now. And that has to change. That has to change fast. And this is a common conservative issue, is being on defense, because the left is good at bullying and browbeating, and our inclination is to be reactive. And you have to teach yourself to not be that way. You have to go on counterattack. You have to go on positive offense. And when someone says, well, I'm a conservative, but I think Tudor is way too rigid on abortion, how do you answer that? First of all, is abortion the issue that you think means we should destroy our state by letting Whitmer have another 4 years? And by the way, that's not true at all, right? Whitmer's the extremist on abortion. Tudor Dixon, actually, despite the media lying about it, that's another point. That's another great way to lead into, I'm sure you've been lied to about Tudor Dixon's position on abortion. That's a great way to answer that. I've heard Tudor Dixon's really tough on abortion. Yeah, because you're being lied to. And I know they've lied to you and told you that she doesn't support abortion with any exceptions, because they lie. Because Tudor Dixon said every single time she was asked in multiple debates, is there an exception for the life of the mother? And she said, yes, there was. So everybody who says there's no exceptions about Tudor Dixon is lying. They're lying liars. So everything else you've heard from these lying liars you shouldn't believe. Here's the truth. That's how you deal with the radical left. You don't play their games. You stick to your message, your points, and you counterpunch at all of their lies. You show the voters how they lie, because voters don't like being lied to. Emma Birch says, why not tell them to vote for Tudor and yes on the amendment? Then you avoid ostracizing people if they're solidly pro-choice, by which she means abortion. Well, first of all, Emma, I would never tell anybody to vote yes on legalizing murdering babies and sexually mutilating children. That's why I wouldn't do that. And secondly, because if you are telling people to vote yes on enshrining in the Michigan Constitution murdering children and sexually mutilating the ones that aren't aborted, then you don't have any credibility anymore with anybody. And if you're going to tell someone, yeah, vote for, I'm a pro aborts for Tudor. Yeah, that's not going to confuse voters. I mean, that's what's going to happen ultimately. Is you're going to confuse voters. That's not a tactic to me. No, you should confront the evil of the amendment, the brutality of the amendment, and then say that's what Whitmer supports. That's what Whitmer endorses. That's what by the way, folks, every single Democrat in Michigan is condoning this amendment. They all support it. They all support it. They support late-term abortion. They support brutal, agonizingly painful dismemberment abortions. They support ripping babies limb from limb. That's what this amendment will put into Michigan's constitution. And I can say that and still not ostracize people. The only person that needs to be ostracized is Gretchen Whitmer. Well, and Dana Nessel. And every other Democrat for that matter. Emma, I don't know what you meant by ostracizing, honestly. Ostracizing means to make someone a leper or something. Maybe even alienating people, turning them off. No, you're not going to get a good outcome supporting a bad thing. It doesn't work that way ever. That's a Democrat's attitude: is the ends justify the means. You can't do that. You can't compromise your values. Oh yeah, Tudor might get more votes if I say I'm pro abortion and pro the amendment. It doesn't work that way. Emma says, I'm just pointing out what you mentioned before. There's a libertarian cohort that is pro-abortion and for medical freedom reasons. Yeah, Emma, but that cohort, I don't know. Well, I'll tell you about the cohort. I know all about them. This came from the Libertarian Party. For those who don't know, the Libertarian movement and the Libertarian Party in America really had two hugely influential figures. One you all probably know is Ayn Rand. The other you might not know is Murray Rothbard. And both of them were atheists and both of them were pro-abortion. And the tragedy ultimately with Murray Rothbard, Ayn Rand was a caustic, nasty one that everybody hated. And just was, I mean, she was just foul. Murray Rothbard was the opposite. Really jovial guy, brilliant. Everyone loved him. And he was a brilliant libertarian scholar in every way you could imagine in terms of, I mean, he's written books on American history. He's written books on the underlying moral ethics of libertarianism. He wrote the Libertarian Party platform when he first was involved in founding Libertarian Party. Brilliant guy. But nobody is perfect. And Rothbard, as with Ayn Rand, had this notion that there's some kind of weird property rights argument to abortion, that a woman should not be encumbered by a baby growing inside of her. It became called evictionism, the notion that, a baby has a right to be alive, but the baby has no right to the woman's nourishment in the womb. So abortion's okay. That was what he argued. And that by itself, folks, probably changed the course of history, probably alienated the Republican movement, the conservative movement from the libertarian movement on that basis alone. And of course, Ayn Rand was on board with that as well for the same reason. They were both atheists. They both don't understand the concept of having a soul. And even to this day, Walter Block still espouses this stuff. And I think it's just foul and obnoxious. Ron Paul, as a presidential candidate, was the corrective of that. He was a pro-life Rothbardian. And he agreed with Rothbard on all of the economic and personal liberty stuff, but threw aside all that nonsense he had about the evictionism theory. That's some kind of deep libertarian history for you folks. But I mean, Emma, to your point, I would say if there's libertarians out there, you would think any libertarian would not want Gretchen Whitmer to have a second term because she destroyed every freedom that we've had. Right? I mean, that's kind of the big thing. So, sometimes the way to reach people is not on the issue that they push at you. And, the other thing I'd point out about libertarians is most of them, abortion's not their issue. It's not their number one issue at all. That's a Christian conservative thing. Libertarians' issues are either economic liberty or civil liberties or foreign policy and dissent and free speech and yada yada. Abortion is not the number one issue. Gretchen Whitmer and the radical left are waging war on every single other thing that's going on in the universe that libertarians should care about. And I would make the argument that we have, again, a ticket that's the most conservative and frankly most libertarian we've ever had in Michigan in years and years and years. If that ticket loses because the purists say they're not pure enough for them, the damage that's going to do to the movement in general is catastrophic. I mean, at that point, every conservative politician is going to say, what's the point of trying to be a grassroots patriot? They will never, nothing we ever do is enough for them. They'll hate us anyway, no matter what we do. So, yeah, and all I can say, folks, also to kind of cap this whole point off, you do the best you can. Some people cannot be persuaded. Some people want to be powerless so they can say, I was right. That is not my cup of tea, personally. I think there is a good argument to be made that you can't support the lesser of two evils. And that's something we've talked about on this program many times. But there is not sufficient evidence to show that Tudor Dixon is a lesser evil than Gretchen Whitmer. I don't think that she rises to the level of a John McCain or a Mitt Romney or a George Bush. And at some point we have to say, we have to unify around someone who is a fine candidate against an absolute monster who has destroyed our state. We have 2 months left to do this. So I hope we do. And I hope all of you work your tails off to help save our state from these evil, evil people that have ruined it for the last 4 years. So that's all I got for right now, folks. We've gone almost 45 minutes. We'll have our full show on Sunday. I'm sure we'll have a lot more to talk about, but I hope this has ended up being, and there's been a lot of side roads we've gone down here, but I think we've also talked about the main thing about the abortion issue, which is that we have to put the spotlight on Whitmer. We have to stop conceding that Tudor's extremist on abortion. She's not. She's not. It's not extreme to say you can't kill a baby because the father's a rapist. It's extreme as killing a baby at 9 months because the mother doesn't want it. What's extreme is having no definition of when life begins, no definition of when rights begin. What's extreme is allowing them to kill babies that survive abortions, but making it impossible to catch them. What's extreme is allowing children to chop off their genitals, and their parents don't even have to know about it and can't even object to it, even if they do know. That's extreme. That is extreme. And if voters knew that, they would not accept it. So I hope you guys all get out there and spread the truth, because time is short. We are running out of time. We've been beating this drum about precinct leadership for 2 years. Time's up. We have 2 months. And every day matters. Absentee ballots are going out in less than 2 weeks. So go out there and spread the truth. And for those of you doing so, as always, thanks again for all you guys do for liberty. I will see you guys all on Sunday. Until then, peace out.